funny because a lot of people know me for the weight loss. Like, I think a lot of people recognize the before and after photo, and I did lose 90 pounds, which is obviously a lot of weight. But for me, it was very much an internal journey. As long as you show up and do the work and work hard, something good is going to come of it. And you may not always know exactly what that is. Like when I was on my fitness journey, I was like, I don't exactly know what this is going to lead to, but I know it's going to be good because this feels right. I was at rock bottom and I couldn't see the future. And I think it was, I always say I'm so grateful that I hit that rock bottom moment, because I think it was what I needed to see clearly. And I think so many people live in sort of like somewhat discomfort. They don't love their job. They're not doing anything they're super proud of, but it's not so uncomfortable that they want to make a change.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to have everything be so uncomfortable and so awful that something had to change.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Code. I have an amazing guest that I cannot wait to talk to for this episode, and I think you're going to really enjoy her. No matter what age you are, if you're a young person, you'll identify immediately with her. She's got an incredible story. But even if you're someone my age, like watching her and learning about her story inspires me, because the concepts we talk about in the Breakthrough Code, she is such an example of. And we were just doing a quick little chat prior to getting on and just kind of talking through this. And you're going to see this is a real life story of what's possible. Her name is Mari Llewellyn, and she's the CEO of a company called Bloom, which has one of the top selling nutritional products out there. If you go to Amazon, you can find it. If you go to Target, you can find it. If you go to Walmart, you can find it. And I'm sure many other places. But it's incredible. And it really is, it's something that comes out of her heart of wanting to try and help people. So I know one of your products is something I'm a big believer in, which is greens, and having more of a, at least some plant-based part of your diet where it's really feeding your cells. We used to own, actually, which would have had you down. We don't own them anymore. We sold them to private equity, but we had a company called Beaming, which was some of the first plant-based cafes. We actually had 3 up in LA. We had one in Santa Monica. We had one in, I can't remember where they were now. We had one in West Hollywood.
Was this the Chroma Wellness founder? Is
Yeah,
that
it was. Yeah. So
okay.
she was initially part of the company, and then we were the largest investors. So we owned, towards the end, we owned the bigger part of the company. We had Jenny Craig was on the board with me. She was a big investor. So, but anyways, we're huge into that. So the type of things you're doing, we're a big believer in. She was named by Forbes to the 30 under 30 list, which is a huge honor. I know Forbes very well, work with them, and that is incredible that you're on that list. You've got a top-rated podcast called The Pursuit of Wellness on Dear Media, peaked at number 42 on Apple Podcasts within 24 hours of premiering, so right off the bat. I know you've got a huge social media community, and I can't wait to talk with you. Welcome to our show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to dive in. I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So start off with, rather than me telling your story, because you have a really incredible story, maybe give us a quick little version of your transformation, where you were, and not just physically, but also mentally, because I know that's a huge part of your transformation. I don't think people just transform physically without transforming mentally. I don't know if you've even seen the show documentary Arnold. Did you see that on
Oh yeah,
Netflix?
for sure.
He was doing things in his mind that changed his body.
100%.
And I know for you, that was a huge part, but take us through a little bit of where you were and where you are now, and then we'll start digging into some more fun stories and details.
Totally. And as you said, the transformation for me was so mental. I think it's funny because a lot of people know me for the weight loss. Like I think a lot of people recognize the before and after photo, and I did lose 90 pounds, which is obviously a lot of weight. But for me, it was very much an internal journey. So where I began was I was in my senior year of college. I was at the lowest point of my life. I was abusing alcohol. I was on a number of medications for depression, anxiety, and mood. I was self-harming regularly. I had a borderline personality diagnosis, and I had basically no idea how to handle pain. I was kind of someone who avoided any problems that came up. I was someone who kind of, I think the phrase is like, lived in comfort or suffered in comfort.
Mm.
I would rather avoid the pain than face it head on. And it got me in a position where I really had no plan for the future. And I had to drop out of school. I was failing every class, right about to graduate, moved back home, and kind of had this moment where I was at rock bottom and I couldn't see the future. And I think it was, I always say I'm so grateful that I hit that rock bottom moment, because I think it was what I needed to see clearly. And I think so many people live in sort of like somewhat discomfort. They don't love their job. They're not doing anything they're super proud of, but it's not so uncomfortable that they want to make a change.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to have everything be so uncomfortable and so awful that something had to change.
Yeah.
So I had this reality check. And also a big thing for me was realizing that I was fully responsible for where I was at and where I was going. I had to stop blaming other people or other narratives. Oh, it's because I grew up this way. Oh, it's because so and so treated me like this. It was a moment where I said, no, this is because of me. And that realization also helped me realize that I was the only person who was going to pull myself out of this dark place I was in. So the one thing I felt like, and this kind of goes back to what you mentioned before about focusing and narrowing in on one thing rather than a lot of things. So, I could have tried to go back to school. I could have tried to get a job. There were so many ways I could have targeted this.
Yeah.
But I said, I think the closest thing that I could focus on right now is my health, because it's in my control. I know what to do. It's not that expensive. I got this. So I actually was dating my now husband, who's a bodybuilder, and I basically emulated everything he did. I said, okay, I'm going to take my breakfast, which at the time was 2 muffins and an iced coffee like this big with milk and sugar, and caffeine and sugar for someone with a mood disorder was really not a good mix.
Dynamite to mood disorder, right?
Dynamite, like awful. And now looking back, I cringe. But he was eating like 6 eggs a day, oatmeal, blueberries. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I remember I like sent him a picture of my breakfast, and it was like eggs, so much food, but better food.
Yep.
And he was super encouraging and was like, maybe try tweaking it to what suits you best. So, I kind of realized maybe I don't need to eat like a 250-pound body. Like, I can adjust this. So I really leaned into like healthy fats, avocados, eggs, olive oil, salmon. The diet was my first switch. And I really think nutrition is so impactful on mental health. It has such a big impact on the way we process emotions, our mood, our energy levels. So instead of crashing and going up and down all day, I was way more even in terms of my blood sugar.
How quickly did it take you to feel better once you started just changing your diet?
I personally think if you go from eating processed foods and a lot of sugar, just one day of eating more nutrient dense food, you're going to feel so different. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have a better mood. Your energy levels are going to be better. You're going to think clearly. And that just put me in a better position to start the journey as a whole. So as we talked about before, my very first step in terms of exercise was just doing a walk a day.
Yeah.
And I think people really—
How hard was that to do? Like I want people to understand what you're talking about. Like, you're making it sound like, oh yeah, this happened. This was massive what you did. You talked about, literally changing how you felt, pulling yourself out of habits that you had grown accustomed to. Like you said, people do get comfortable, even though it's crappy and it feels terrible. like it's the life we're used to, and so we stay in it.
Yeah.
I think life is always trying to move us into a better path. And sometimes it's a little feather that crosses the cheek and you're like, you get the message. Sometimes a little tap on the shoulder. You had the brick in the face, right? Like where everything fell apart. But because it was so dramatic, it enabled you to create as an equally dramatic shift in who you were. If it hadn't been as dramatic, it would have been harder for you, I think. But you had everything pulled out from underneath you, and here you are.
Totally.
But I want people to understand, like, because I know there's people out there right now saying, oh yeah, look at her, she's beautiful, it was probably easy for her. It wasn't easy. I don't think it was easy, for anybody. But you had the discipline, you had the commitment, you had the focus. And I just want everyone to understand, this is what's possible, is what she's talking about for every single one of you. So sorry for interrupting, but I just wanted to make sure that doesn't get lost. Like, oh yeah, she lost 90 pounds. Oh yeah, she got off all Medicaid. No, come on. This is big stuff that you were able to. She started a business that is doing millions and millions and millions. Like, this is huge stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want anyone listening to know that I know you see me now and I'm at this place in my life that may appear to be because of luck. But if you could see who I was back then, it was night and day from who I am now. And I wasn't even sure how far I was going to get, because I had always been someone that gave up. And this was the first time in my life that I set a goal and I kept chipping away at each promise. Like, I really think building confidence is about keeping your own promises. So showing up for that walk, doing the baby steps, chipping away at these small habits every single day really built my confidence. And I think it's the reason that I got as far as I did, because it was started small. It wasn't intimidating for me. It was still challenging. I went from not moving my body at all to adding movement in every day and cooking my meals. But it made life so much more exciting. And I gained so much independence through this journey. I genuinely don't know who I would be now without that hardship. And yeah, as you said, just slowly chipping away at each goal. And I truly became a different person. I feel like fitness taught me everything I know about having a work ethic. It sounds cheesy, but getting in the gym and doing, I think you've been on Ed Milet's show. I love Ed. And he talks about doing one more of everything. And I took that to the gym and did one more rep of everything, one more set of everything. Each time, just push one more time. And I took that when I eventually started my business, and it truly has changed the way I approach my life in general. I don't know if I can curse on here. I can't half-ass anything.
That's not a bad curse. You can do that all day long. Yeah.
I do everything to the maximum of my ability. If I'm not going to give it my all, I'm not going to do it at all. And the journey that I went on really taught me that. And along the way, while I was getting healthy and losing weight, I was becoming internally stronger and more independent. So I ended up getting a job at Orange Theory and working the front desk. I was waking up at 3 a.m. and opening up the gym and having people throw their sweaty towels at me. But that in itself taught me so much. And I eventually went back to school and got my degree. Like that fitness journey taught me who I am. And I'm forever grateful that I went through that.
Yeah. And then how long ago was that you actually began that, even just starting to walk? Because you're still a very young lady, 29 years old. How long ago was that?
That was November of 2017.
So we're talking 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've been successful for a long time. What was it that kept you going? Because, the people look at people who are successful, who have made money, and they look at, like you just said, they look at who you are now. They go, oh my gosh, she's just so lucky, or, beautiful, or she got all the breaks. But there were times when I know it had to be really tough to continue on the path, either mentally or physically. Maybe you were in pain from workouts, or you didn't want to get up in the morning. How did you start to change your internal story about who you were? Because you even told us the old version of who you were would have quit. would have given up, would have lost motivation. What was different this time? Like what was it that you can attribute to the stick-to-itiveness that allowed you to be who you are today and who you're going to even be tomorrow and the next day?
It's a good question. And I feel like this has evolved for me throughout time, because at the beginning of my journey, I won't lie, I was using the anger I had as fuel a little bit. I was using this feeling of like, let me prove it to everyone who doubted me that I can do it. And I know that sounds a little bit toxic, but I just want to be honest, like that did take me to a certain point. And I think if you do have that chip on your shoulder and you're a little bit angry, like use that to your advantage. That will only get you so far. I will say that. I think showing myself that I could do something that I thought I could never do. I was like, the possibilities are endless. Like I just lost 90 pounds. Like, how did I just do that? If all I did was put my mind to something and show up every day. Like, not every workout was amazing, but I showed up and I just walked on the treadmill, or maybe I was crying at the gym. At least I was there and I made it. And taking that and applying it to my business, hiring a team, buying a house, all the things I do now, it's kind of like, as long as you show up and do the work and work hard, something good is going to come of it. And you may not always know exactly what that is. Like when I was on my fitness journey, I was like, I don't exactly know what this is going to lead to, but I know it's going to be good because this feels right. And I think I also felt like I was discovering my purpose on the way and using my pain as my purpose. And that really has transcended through my podcast, through my business. And now I'm so much more fueled by this vision I have for my family that I want to have. Almost like, I guess, healing my inner child in a way and creating my own family with my own values, and just continuing to grow in this role and continue to share everything I've learned on the way, and adding value where I can. So the motivation always changes, but I think also learning to love myself through everything. So showing up for myself, not just to prove someone else wrong. It's evolved over time for sure. But I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I kind of felt your emotion even too when you talked about your family and that you want to have, as we heal these parts of ourselves, that a lot of it we picked up from our parents, right? When we're growing up, the first 7 years of your life, you don't have a conscious mind. It's only all subconscious. It's super open because you're trying to learn what to touch, what don't touch, what to eat, what to be careful of, how to walk, how to talk. And so the conscious mind would get in the way. But because of that, I mean, it's good we develop, but also we take on our parents' beliefs, right? And we take on some good ones for sure, but we also take on some that are not so good. And it gets passed on to us. And guess what? Our kids, if we don't heal ourselves, we continue passing on stuff from maybe generations ago. And as we heal, our future children are healed, right? So it's really beautiful what you're doing. And I could feel that emotion even when you were thinking about that and talking about that. It's such worthy work. What is your purpose? One of the things that I wrote about in the book, The Breakthrough Code, is if we really want to have superpower, one of the most important things you can do is connect I don't call them goals, because a goal to me kind of sounds like I may get it, I might not get it. I call them results. I already see it being done as I think about it, but connecting the results, the big breakthroughs we want, to our purpose. Even if it's amount of money, don't make it about the money. How by making that amount, like I know for me, and I've done well, but if I have a result that's monetarily, let's say a big result, I don't attach it just to the money or the things. I attach it to, wow, when I accomplish that, I'm become an even better teacher of how other people can do that, right? And so, because my purpose is to help people experience more goodness in their life, help them, unleash more goodness and whatever that is for them. And so if I can show them how to do that monetarily, right? Awesome. If I can show that to do it with their health or their relationships or whatever it might be. What's your purpose? What's really driving you as you now move forward in your life?
Yeah. I think what I've uncovered is sharing. Like, I think I
Mm-hmm.
have an interesting ease with being vulnerable. Like, when I'm on the microphone, when I'm doing the podcast, talking to a guest, I find it easy to share challenges that I've been through. Not necessarily easy, but easier than others might. And I feel like if I went through all of this, the best thing I can do is share my story and how I overcame everything I've been through, because it could then help others. And I think even if someone's story is not the exact same as mine, even if they don't have BPD or they didn't,
Mm-hmm.
have the same experiences I did, they can relate to being in that rock bottom, dark place, or hating who they are, or not being proud of where their life is at. And I think sharing my personal stories, but then also bringing guests on. I started my podcast in January. It's called The Pursuit of Wellness.
Yep.
And I've brought on such incredible experts to talk about trauma, nutrition,
Yeah.
exercise, hormones, to make health information accessible for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. I think that's
Yeah.
such a cool part of this industry, that we can sit for an hour in our car and listen to a top expert give us advice on our hormones. Is like,
Yeah.
that was never a thing before. And I think such a
Yeah.
cool part about this industry. And then with Bloom, my goal from the beginning with Bloom was always to make fun, friendly, accessible supplements and make it enjoyable to include in everyone's lifestyle, specifically women. I think
Yeah.
I really can speak to that community. And when I started my fitness journey, there was a lack of authenticity in the female fitness space. And Bloom has kind of like been that bridge to wellness for so many women. So for me, sharing my pain and sharing my learnings has really become my purpose.
Yeah, and I was so impressed when I was watching you on a couple other podcasts. One of the things that really stuck out, especially for a young person, I think I don't know if I actually I absolutely do know I was not as vulnerable as you were when I was in my 20s. I was trying to put on a little bit of a show, and I had adversity. My dad passed away when I was 3 years old, so I had different things. I had fears and anxieties and things like that growing up. But I remember moving out to California to help run Tony Robbins' company, and I was in my 20s and like 25 years old, and I felt like, man, I can't show any vulnerability. I got to make sure people think I know what's going on. I've got it handled. And it was the biggest sham ever, because inside I was like so stressed out. And then I learned that when you're vulnerable, it's actually the most powerful thing you can be, because you're not hiding behind anything.
Yeah.
You're just who you are. And that's what I saw when I was watching your some interviews of you. I just saw this person that was like authentic, vulnerable, open, not embarrassed or ashamed of anything. Like you brought up, the personality disorder, and talked about, being moody and not loving yourself and all those different things. And and that's fine. Like if you're in your 40s or 50s, it's easy to talk about stuff because that's so far separate, and we've grown emotionally more intelligent. But someone 29 doing that, super impressed with you. How did you get to that point where you're like not afraid to do this?
And it's interesting you say that, because I always wonder if for men it's more challenging, because I do think men have more of a,
Probably is a little bit more for men. We got to be the big
yeah,
tough guys. Yeah.
there's more of a pressure to kind of have it all together all the time, which I think is must be challenging. But I think for me, I went so long not expressing my emotions because I didn't really grow up in an emotionally healthy household. And I
Mm-hmm.
was never really sure of how to communicate the way I felt. Like, my emotions always came out like outbursts, or I would just drown them out with drinking and partying or whatever I was doing. And I just reached a point where I was like, this isn't working. The
Wow.
best way to resolve something is to explain how I'm feeling in a calm way. And, I did so much therapy. I've done tons of DBT therapy. I'm really obsessed with self-development, and I
Yeah.
listen to tons of podcasts. And I just think the best way to connect with other people is to be vulnerable. And oftentimes people are thinking exactly what you're thinking. Like if you're, you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you're struggling with something and you feel uncomfortable, they probably are too. And
Yeah.
simply by bringing it up and addressing it head on, that connection's immediately so much stronger. And I feel like you can make so much more progress. And I feel like to make all of the pain I went through worth it, I might as well share and help other people. You know what I mean?
Love it. I love it. To make it worth it. Wow, that's so cool. I'm a big believer, and I was on the Ed Milet show, and I talked about this. It was about how to shift reality. And I think when we shift like we always want the reality, hey, reality change. You person, you partner, you mom, you dad, you child, change, be the way that I want you to be. It's not how it works. It changes when you change. Like when you change, your whole world changes, which is why we say upgrade your story and to upgrade your life. When you show up, the same world cannot exist, right? Because now you are different. You are expressing yourself differently. Your energy's different. Everything's energy, I believe. Einstein said everything's energy. When we change, our energy changes. But most people don't want to do that. They want the outside thing to change, which is super hard to do.
Yeah.
The inside, even the body, your body is a reflection of basically of your mind. Our mind creates our body. Yes, you did the walking, you changed the eating, but even those things were driven by your mind, right? You had a different feeling about life. You had a different focus. That's why people, I remember back when I was with Tony Robbins, and he's still a good friend of mine, but we were curious, like, why can people, and you've lost the weight and kept it off, why can people lose weight and, take off a lot of pounds and then gain it right back? Or why do people quit smoking and then start smoking it? And then vice versa, there's people like you that lose weight and they just keep it off, or people stop smoking and they don't smoke again. And the reason was not just what they did, it was their identity. Like right now, your identity of who you are is not the identity of who, the 2016 and 2015 version. You made that shift. Tell us how you would coach someone to make that shift within them when they're struggling with whatever it is.
Yeah, such a good question. And I agree with you. Like when I think about me in 2016, I have a hard time even connecting the identity with who I am now. It really is a different person.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, I'm like afraid to ever slip back to anything like who that person was.
Right.
I think the first steps are be honest with yourself and really do an analysis of where you're at in your life. Like, are you living to your full potential? Are you fulfilling the dreams that you have? What are those dreams? Are you showing up as the person every day that you need to be to get there? Like, who is the dream version of you and what are they doing? And are you doing those things? I think that was the first step for me. Again, was just taking full responsibility for the position I was in. If you don't know what those are, maybe just sit with yourself, tune out all the noise, put the phone down, spend some time alone and write on a piece of paper everything that you want your life to look like. And no one else is going to read the paper. Don't worry about judgments from other people. Genuinely write out what your dream life looks like. And I think having that vision and then breaking it down, because having those big dreams is amazing, but you really need to chip away at smaller goals in order to get there. And taking note of that. Okay, what would I need to do in order to have a podcast? What would I need to do in order to speak to thousands of people on a stage, whatever it may be? I think dreaming big is awesome, but also the work has to happen in order to get there. So yeah, be honest with yourself, get those dreams on a piece of paper and start that day. I also think so many people wait for the perfect moment.
Yeah.
There is no perfect moment. Even when we
Right.
started, like I look back at our first products for Bloom, we did everything ourselves. Like we designed the labels, we designed the website, the photography, the social media, we did all the formulas. I look back on the labels now and I'm like, oh my gosh, those were so bad. I'm so happy we don't have those anymore. But thank goodness we launched when we did and we didn't wait. Because if you wait, there's never going to be a perfect time.
Yeah.
So just start as well, I think is key.
I love it. One of the sayings in my book, and that whenever I go out and speak, I always tell people you're under no obligation to be the exact same person you were 5 minutes ago. And you're living proof of that. But we do, most people, the reason they struggle, in my opinion, and why they're not able to create a transformation, anything close to what you've been able to create, is they're trying to drag their old self along and then have that transformation happen. You had to let go of a lot of things to be where you are today. You had to let go of things that just don't fit where you want to be today. And you had to take on new beliefs, new actions that felt really uncomfortable. And most people aren't willing to do that. They want to be comfortable. They want everything to be comfortable. And it's got to be comfortable for me to move. I want this big thing, but it's got to be comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable. This thing, when you look at Mari, just understand she got there by getting uncomfortable. And the only reason she was uncomfortable wasn't because it wasn't good for her, wasn't because it wasn't taking her to where she wanted to go. It was uncomfortable because it was uncharted territory for her mind. Her mind was used to holding her back into that old version of who she was. And thank God you resisted that old version, right? Listen, you're a beautiful, amazing soul, whatever incarnation that is, right? But you're so much more helpful for people in this incarnation. And it's because you resisted just staying with the norm. And everybody listening, like, watch her podcast, watch her interviews, obviously use her products, but use her as an example. And she did it when it was harder. I think it's harder to do it, when you're young and you don't have as much experience. So I know you're inspiring a ton of people. When I was watching some of the interviews that you did, you really were in a dark place. You said you didn't like who you were, and now you're this bright, shining light. What does the future hold for you, like, moving forward? Like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? What does your life look like as you continue to grow and expand?
Yeah. I love everything you said. I'm super inspired right now, especially not feeling obligated to hold on to who you were 5 minutes ago. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I would love to have a family, as I mentioned. I dream of having kids. In terms of my career, I definitely really enjoy this podcast. I want to keep growing. I would love to public speak one day. I'm going to have to pick your brain about that another time.
I wrote a book on that too, called Win the Presentation Game. So I'm happy to help you with that too.
Please.
Yeah.
I would love to connect with people on stage and be able to see their faces and speak about my story, hear about other people's stories. I really want to explore that area. Bloom is growing rapidly, more than I think we ever expected. So excited to see where we go with that. We could be launching in more retailers very soon.
How did that happen? Tell us the story of Bloom. It's fascinating how you've grown it so quickly.
Yeah.
And how big it's gotten. Like, how the heck did that happen? How did you manifest that?
So after losing the weight, I posted a transformation photo, a before and after, and I really had not been public about my fitness journey at all. I had 900 followers. I wasn't a social media user, but I had this photo and I was so proud of it. And Greg was like, you should post it. So I posted it. It blew up. It was like the era of social media where things kind of organically got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Now it's so saturated that doesn't happen as much. But I kind of organically grew a community of women very quickly. And all of them were asking for workout plans, nutrition guides, asking for products. So I said, okay, I'll whip this together. So
you did a little PDF?
Yeah.
And you went down to Kinko's or something and printed them or something like that. And then and you sold thousands, like it blew up. Yeah.
made the PDF guide at a Barnes and Noble. I sold it for $5. Um,
Yeah.
I would manually email it to people and they would PayPal me. So I was on my phone all day. It was super sustainable business plan, as you can.
Yeah.
Figured out how to make a website. We sold tons of guides. Like, it was pretty crazy. We put all of the money from the guides into a resistance band product that we also sold a ton of. I actually hand packed and shipped the first 900 orders
So
out of my.
listen, when you look at her now and she's got a staff and everything, it started with her hand packing bands and shipping them out and
Yep.
PDFs. Yeah, pretty cool story.
Out of my dad's house, which he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Just wait, okay?"
Yeah.
And then we put all of the money from the bands into sampling for Bloom because
Mm.
I found it really difficult to find supplements for myself on my fitness journey. They were all very like masculine,
Yeah.
hardcore. I wanted something feminine, yummy, great ingredients, easy to incorporate in my routine. And we launched the first pre-workouts in January of 2019. They blew up. We just kept putting out products. We put out the greens right before COVID, which was an all-in-one fruits and veggies, probiotics, prebiotics, adaptogens, just like everything you could need in one scoop that tasted
Yeah.
really good. And those really hit because I made the product for myself. Like, I really wanted a greens powder, and it was helping me with my digestion, my bloating. I took it on vacation. So that product really took off. And now that's kind of like what we're known for. We really are a greens company. And yeah, it was my dream to get into Target. We're in Target, we're in Walmart,
Yeah.
we're on Amazon.
You're
It's
huge on Amazon, right?
Yeah, Amazon's a really big channel for us for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyone can get these greens, lots of different places to get them. So talk about the greens. I love green smoothies, green drinks, powders, things like that. What makes yours unique?
So I think one thing that people always complain about with greens is that they taste like a lawnmower or grass
Yeah.
or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. So my goal was to make them super delicious without compromising ingredients. So we have amazing ingredients in there, all the fruits and veggies you could need, everything you need for digestion, digestive enzymes, adaptogens for stress, but they taste really good. So we have coconut, mango, berry, citrus, strawberry, kiwi. I know, I'll send you some. Did you not have any? I have to send you
I
some.
haven't tried them yet. No, I'd love to. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, absolutely send you some. So the goal was to make them really delicious, and that's kind of what we've become known for, is how good they taste. And we also have tons of influencers talking about them, which has been awesome. Like, TikTok has been huge for us, and women of all walks of life, like whether they're nurses, students, mothers, college students, whatever it may be. So it really meets people where they're at on their wellness journey, and it's been a really cool experience watching it grow. It feels like my baby is like out in the wild. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I know you must get some amazing stories, obviously from the supplements, but also just from people hearing your story. What are some of your favorite stories of people that have been inspired by you that you've gotten to hear back from them? And I know you've had tons and tons, but what are a couple that you really are super proud of?
I think my favorite stories are when girls come up to me who have had BPD or
And talk about BPD, because most people
yeah,
or some people might not know what that is. Can you talk about that a little bit too?
totally. So it stands for borderline personality disorder, and it's actually a trauma disorder which was discovered recently. So kind of like PTSD, but it's a trauma response when you experience difficulty in childhood, and it can come out as a lack of identity, very volatile emotions, you struggle with interpersonal relationships. It's a very painful disorder. I always say it kind of feels like you have third-degree burns on your emotions. And this was definitely something, and I want to say this because people who have a BPD diagnosis often feel doomed. I know I used to feel this way because there's a high rate of suicide and self-harm with BPD. Current day me, I don't struggle with BPD every day anymore. I have occasional moments But I've really gotten to this place where it's not a daily occurrence for me. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that. Like
Yeah,
you can heal yourself out of it, which I think is
absolutely.
beneficial to know. You're not doomed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it is a really painful disorder. So meeting other people who have it or have struggled with it and have used health and fitness or my story or the podcast as a way of coping or a way of healing, if I could even be a small part of that, that is so beautiful to me. And I feel like I could really connect with those people in a way that not many others can, because BPD is kind of a little bit rare. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think those mental health stories really get me every time. Yeah.
So I'm sure actually saved some lives with your story, with people learning that they can heal from it. Because when we start thinking differently, our brains actually change, right? So the old patterns that are not focused on the connections die away, and we create new patterns in the brain, and it's easier to feel happy, right? Even if you weren't naturally a person that felt happy growing up, we can really change who we are through this. And it's fine for someone that hasn't struggled through it to talk and be able to say, here's what you need to do. But to hear a story of someone who's been in the depths of what it really was like and had that pain and had it for several years, and now is living this beautiful life, not perfect. No life is perfect. We still have adversities and changes. That's awesome. It helps us, but you sure are a shining example. I want to ask about your husband, because I know he was there throughout your journey. And so not only has he seen your transformation, I know that you've inspired his transformation too in many ways. So talk about that dynamic, how a couple can, because he was there probably at some of your lowest points, right? When you were just dating,
Yeah.
and and now he's here and running the company with you and doing all these amazing things now. What's that journey been like as at first, I guess, boyfriend, girlfriend, and now as a married couple? What's that journey been like?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. Greg Greg is a character. He is very high energy. I mean, to me, he's like textbook definition of an entrepreneur. He has just such a business mind, but he definitely struggled in school. He was
Mhm.
not an academic individual, neither was I. Both of us kind of had this like, I think I always knew we had a bigger plan, let's say.
Mhm.
But when we were at school, I mean, we actually went to the same high school as well. Both
Oh,
of
okay.
us were kind of like underperformers, didn't show up the ways we should. Um, it kind of felt like we weren't meant for success. So to watch him, I guess, take all of his best qualities and become an incredible leader. He's the
Yeah.
CEO of Bloom. He leads a team of 75 people, young people. He's helped people grow in their careers. I mean, it's incredible. He's actually in Philadelphia right now, where we went to college, but now he's at Expo East for business. So he has, I mean, it's incredible watching him bloom, no pun intended, into this incredible leader, um,
Yeah.
and really live out his dreams. As an entrepreneur, I feel like bloom isn't the end for him. Like I see him doing
Mhm.
more and more and more. So that's been awesome. And fitness has always been a part of his life. I mean, he's been bodybuilding forever, but I guess everything he taught me was so impactful on the way I think about everything. And it's been cool to see our relationship with fitness evolve over time. Like now we are so much more busy than we used to be. We used to have like no responsibilities. So fitness was our main focus. But now it's like it's the time in the morning that we need to ourselves before we can throw ourselves into the day with all of our team. It really is very meditative for both of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. He's been there for me at my lowest moments. I've been there for his. And I think we've grown together in a way that I could have never imagined. And
Amazing.
when you go through something really hard with someone, it's very bonding. So we kind of have
Yeah.
this bond that like no one else could ever understand. So it's been really, really cool.
That's beautiful. I can see both of you being amazing parents. That's so incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, amazing story. So if you were to kind of close out this interview with advice for people? And let's say advice for people that are struggling, but also advice for people that aren't necessarily struggling. They just want to go to another level, and maybe they're two separate things, but what would you tell them?
Yeah. I think if you're struggling, view it as an opportunity. I always say being at rock bottom is kind of an advantage because you have nothing to lose. Like when I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about my rock bottom, truthfully, it was a moment of anything could happen. Like you could really take it anywhere because there's not much else happening anyway. Like I didn't have anything to lose back then. So
Yeah.
use this moment and view it as a blank slate. Like you can become whoever you want to be. You can make your life whatever you want it to be. So if you're struggling, use this moment as an opportunity. If you're looking to take it to the next level, I think, again, spend time alone, really think about how can I reach my full potential here and what do I need to do to reach that full potential? And also just do a diagnosis of like, who am I spending my time with? What kind of content am I consuming? What am I reading? What am I listening to? Be in the room with people who motivate you and light you up. You don't want to be around people who are dimming your light in any way or not encouraging you to be the best you can be. I really put intentional focus on the people I talk to and the types of content I consume because I always
Yeah.
want to be thinking bigger than I could imagine, you know?
I love
So,
it. I love it.
yeah.
That's amazing. And I hope everyone practice what she just said, especially the part of guarding your mind. Like there's so much wasted time in our days of us just, trying to just pass the time away or getting on our phones, like literally like, I don't have anything to do right now. Oh, get on my phone versus I don't have anything to do right now. Let me meditate. Let me journal. Let me go in my imagination. Einstein says imagination is the preview of coming attractions. Your imagination starts to create your reality. And I've found, over time myself doing a little bit of like, what the heck am I doing this for? Like, sit down. I don't need to just, get the dopamine hits from consuming some sort of content. And for me, I'm a reader, so it's usually pretty good content like Wall Street Journal or ESPN, maybe not so good. But it's not taking me anywhere. It's filling in time. It's stimulating me a little bit. And we're always, especially these days, we're stimulating. I love even what you said, like your mornings are your time to really get ready for the day. And for me, I can't always do this, but I don't like to start my meetings till 10 a.m. because I have this whole process of things I do in the morning that are just nourishing me and getting me ready. And then I'm super careful what content I consume, even on Netflix or things like that. There's things that it's a number one hit show. I don't care. Like, what's it about? Is it going to inspire me? Is it going to make me feel better? Or is it going to like put me to bed with scary crap in my head where I'm going to have like nightmares because I saw someone's eyes pop out or something like that? You got to be super careful what you consume. And I think for your generation, I think that's a really powerful message. I grew up at a time where, we had, 3 channels and we didn't have cell phones and things like that. And I still find myself like sometimes falling into it. But I think your generation has such amazing potential, and technology can empower it, but technology and different things that we're being exposed to can also disempower it. So you are certainly a shining voice and super proud of what you've accomplished so far. And the good news is you got a lot more ahead of you, a lot more greatness ahead of you. So very, very proud of you. Great to meet you. Thank you for being on our show. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed visiting with Mari. Again, look for her products, Bloom. You can also buy her products on her site, bloomnu.com, BLOOMU.com. She has an app called the Slay app. Lots of ways to find her podcast. You can see in the back, Pursuit of Wellness. So check her out. Good job. Like, get the head out of the way a little bit there. And if you like this, tell your friends about it, and obviously subscribe. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to seeing you on another episode of The Breakthrough Code.